What's going on, everyone? It's your boy here with another video and another unsolicited story that maybe some of you may enjoy. Tonight I'm playing the infamous Turtles in Time. I find that I'm not the biggest fan of beat 'em ups, but this one is just really fun. I'm not a fan of beat 'em ups because they don't seem to do a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I've recently started playing, for example, Streets of Rage 2 on my SNES Mini, and it's like it's fine. And like I get why it would have been fun way back when, but playing it today, I just feel like it doesn't do a lot for me. You know what I mean? Whereas this is just kind of like watching a cartoon. You know what I mean? It has so much personality. The music's pretty silly. The animations are pretty goofy. So this one I can have a good time playing, even if it is in the end just moving forward and pressing the attack button over and over again. But anyway, of course, I have a story for you all today. And I don't really know how to segue into it, so fuck it. I'm just gonna go for it. So, for those of you who don't really know me all that well, my older brother is like 6.5 years older than me. And I think it's pretty safe to say that he is one of the, if not the absolute biggest influence in my life, my biggest role model, the person that I look up to the most in the world, perhaps, very easily. And so he's a very spiritual guy, right? He's very Catholic. And he'll sometimes just send me materials, not in like a pushy kind of way, or not as in like, your, I guess, stereotypical, oh, I'm Catholic and I need everyone to be Catholic kind of way. Just in like, okay, I'm Catholic and this has been good for me for a variety of reasons, and I think this could be good for my brother as well, right? And he like send me like articles and just like readings and things like that, in that sense, right? Just because he knows it's been good for him and he genuinely thinks it's been good, it could be good for me. And I appreciate it, right? Because in the end, I know I could certainly use being a little bit more spiritual than I have been in the last few years even. But anyway, he did send me this, he sent me a link to this, I guess, podcast, if you will, on Spotify. That's supposed to give, it's so the concept of this podcast is, every day they release one 6 to 7 minute episode. Shit, this is gonna kill me. I have pizza right here. Every day they release one 6 to 7 minute episode, and it's basically just a little reflection, right? A little reflection on life and how daily life can just, direct us towards God and that kind of deal, right? And the person talking in this podcast is, of course, a priest. And so he sent this to me today. And so, of course, 6 to 7 minutes, what the fuck else better do I have to do with 6 or 7 minutes in my day? So I figured I'll check this out. And I did. And I thought it was really interesting, right? And this is, of course, I'm not, the purpose of this video is not to like preach on religion or Catholicism or anything. It's just, I think I heard this guy say something interesting. That's something that I've kind of like experienced and thought about a lot in my life. So I figured it'd be just worth talking about. So what this priest mentioned, he brought something up about silence. How in this day and age we seem to be very just surrounded constantly by like noise, right? Like music and TV and just media everywhere, right? Our phones, screens, and we're constantly distracted by all of this shit like daily, right? And so he mentioned something about how we should strive for some kind of silence in our lives, not for any other reason other than to just like try to find some peace with ourselves, right? Like when we allow ourselves to like breathe for a second and think for a second without paying a lot of attention to like any of the external noise that may be surrounding us all the time, we're able to like come to terms with some things and like make peace with ourselves and all that kind of shit. I'm getting my ass whooped here. But anyway, he mentioned something about, he said there was something special about, I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, but he said something about how there's something special about the silence that one can, this is going to be oxymoronic, but the silence that one can, I guess, hear or perceive or feel right after it finishes snowing, right? He says the silence that comes after a big snowfall when when you can no longer hear the wind or anything. He says that there's a very special silence at that precise moment. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And it's something that resonated with me a lot because, well, I studied in Massachusetts, right? And Massachusetts is a state where 8 out of the 12 months of the year, it's very, very cold. Very, very cold. And, it just so happened that we had a couple years there, or at least 1 year at least, where Worcester, the city where I studied in, Worcester was the city that got the most snow in the winter season in the entire United States, right? So, and I don't know. This idea about the silence in the snow and the silence in the cold was very interesting to me because I honestly always just kind of felt that. I grew up in Honduras, which doesn't really have seasons except for like a rainy and a dry season. That's pretty much it. So the seasons in the United States or in Massachusetts where I was something that was just inherently interesting and attractive to me. So even though it got really, really cold, there was something about the cold that just drew me, that used to draw me a lot, right? There's something about, because it's so cold, everyone just kind of wants to be inside where there's heating or when they can like be snuggled in a blanket or whatever. So like the outside tends to be kind of quiet and peaceful a lot of the times when it's cold. And I would sometimes try to take advantage of that and enjoy it, if you will. You know what I mean? Like even though it would be very, very cold, I would often, not often, but like I know at least once, like a month or something, I would just feel this weird urge to, even though I was in the comfort of my room or my apartment or whatever, in the heat of my room and in my apartment, I would feel this weird urge to just go outside and not a lot of coating. Of course, I wouldn't go like just wearing a t-shirt or anything, but like I wouldn't wear my heaviest jacket or anything. I would just wear like a sweatshirt or something and some pants and some shoes. And I would just go outside and sit and feel the cold for I guess for as long as I can endure it, right? I wouldn't set a time for myself. I wouldn't be like, all right, I'm gonna be outside and feel the cold for like 30 minutes or anything. No, I would just go outside and feel the cold for as long as I could, right? As soon as it started getting like really uncomfortable and just, I guess just as soon as it started getting really uncomfortable, I'd just be like, all right, that's good enough. I'll just go back inside. But I liked doing that because I did feel that there was some weird sort of peace in the cold, right? Considering that I'd never really felt that kind of cold in my life before. And just feeling that, right? That there were usually not a lot of people outside just in the cold at all. So it did feel kind of peaceful when I was just out there feeling the cold for myself. So I just thought it was interesting that that the priest that I listened to today would just bring that up precisely, right? Like the peace that one can feel in the silence of the cold, right? In the silence of the snow. I thought that was really, really cool. I have since moved back to Honduras. I have been in Honduras for I don't know, like a year and a half now since I've ultimately moved out of Worcester, Massachusetts. Patterns. Damn it, I'm dying here. I've been back in Honduras for like a year and a half, and of course it doesn't get very cold here. But the city that I live in, the temperatures could drop sometimes to like, I don't know, 15 to 12 degrees Celsius. For a couple of weeks during the year, especially towards, November and December. So it gets cool, right? It gets comfortable. But there is this park, the national park, which is in one of the mountains surrounding the city. And to get to it, you have to drive up a hill for a while, right? So when you're in the park, the city is kind of just about a kilometer above sea level. So I think this park is just a little higher than that. So when you're there, it gets significantly colder than it is like in the city, right? It gets just naturally because you're in a park and there's not a lot of like artificial lighting and there's not a lot of traffic and shit like that. So it's just naturally it gets a lot colder. And even when we would go there with my friends on a weekend night, on a Friday or Saturday night, I would sometimes I would sometimes just not wear a sweatshirt, even though it was pretty chilly. I was just not wear a sweatshirt because I wanted to feel the cold, because I feel like there's something, I don't know. I was always afraid that that the friends that I was with would always think that I'm just doing it to like try to like alpha male them, right? Like, oh, I can withstand the cold, or not even that, but just like be pretentious about the fact that I studied in Massachusetts, and like just be pretentious about like, oh, like I've been in temperatures a lot colder than this, so I can afford sandals. And that's not at all the point, right? It's just feeling the cold, something that happens naturally that we don't often get to like, experience here in Honduras, because it just doesn't get very cold here. So when we're up there, when the temperatures are lower than usual, I would make an effort to like not wear a heavy coat or something, because I wanted to feel the cold once again, because I do find, and I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but I do think there is something in the cold, right? I think precisely because it's something that we don't, or at least that I have not, experienced a lot in my lifetime. There's just something valuable about the cold, and it does weirdly make me feel at peace, right? There is something about the cold that makes me feel at peace. There is something about the cold that makes me want to feel it. Beyond the fact that I just don't like the heat, right? I just prefer colder weather generally. I would often just seek out to like feel the cold and not coat myself from it very much, just because, again, I do think there is something valuable in it. I have always gotten a weird sense of like peace in the cold, and I understand that can sound very very privileged, right? Because I understand there's a lot of people out there in the world who just have literally no shelter from the cold, and I just happen to have the privilege to have shelter from it. I can afford a jacket, and I can afford a sweatshirt, and I can afford a house with heating and whatever, and I can afford a bed with blankets that will shelter me from the cold. And so I understand that, right? So, but in my privilege of being able to just endure the cold for as long as it's comfortable, I don't know. I guess that's always something that I like to do, because as this priest happened to mention today, I do find some peace in the cold. I do think the cold gives way for us to just take a second to breathe and, be in silence with ourselves. And I guess that's the story that I wanted to say, the story that I wanted to tell. And I don't even know that I told the story. I might have just rambled on for a while. But regardless, this is a weird time. And sometimes just talking to myself while playing these games is kind of therapeutic. So I just wanted to do it anyway. I didn't really comment on the game a lot. You've been watching the footage. You can tell how silly it is. You see the characters' expressions and all that shit. So this is, I don't know, this is entertaining, and it's not hard, right? Like, of course I'm dying, but what I mean it's not hard is that it's not complicated. You just move, try to avoid the enemy's attacks, and you just mash on the attack button. You know what I mean? It's not complicated. It's not frustrating at all, I don't think. So that's why I like this game. Why I decided to pick this game to tell this story, I don't know. But it is what it is, and I think for now, that is what I wanted to say. And I guess it's convenient because I just died and lost all my lives. So, I don't know, maybe I'll have another story to tell, and I'll come back and keep playing this game. For the moment, I hope that everyone is doing well. I hope that everyone's families and loved ones are doing well. And yeah, stay safe and stay strong out there. Much love, much strength. Peace out.